The MBR relevant theory article template is specifically designed to allow you as the author to interpret some theory that has been presented in the literature and make it alive for practice. So what you're really doing is operating almost as a translator between the research way of framing a theory and the way that practice can actually understand and apply it. The relevant theory article is expected to identify a research question of practical importance. You need to have some problem that managers actually want to solve. Present highlights of the literature relating to the question, but this is not a full literature search. You can talk about how you research the literature when it gets time to the review or appendix that's submitted along with the article. Explain the basis and application of the theory. The idea is to make a reader understand why this theory might be credible. Explore how it might be applied through real-world examples. Being concrete is a good way of clarifying what it is that you're going to talk about. And identify the strengths and weaknesses of the theory in terms of how it might be applied, where it might not make sense to apply it, and so forth. The things that a manager would want to know before taking a risk on assuming that the theory was going to help him or her in a business problem. And like most MBR articles, it should be between 5 and 15 pages when written out in the template. When a reviewer is looking at your relevant theory article, they're going to be looking at a number of criteria. First off is how important the question is being asked. We want to have questions that are of interest to the reader and reasonably widespread relevance. Though if you can find one particular community for whom it would be very valuable, that might be acceptable as well. We want to know the degree to which the theory is novel or needs explanation for practicing managers. So if the existing theory is confusing, then as long as you explain it clearly, that can be very valuable to managers. We want to see that applying this theory and analysis is going to provide value to managers and researchers. That's why it's so important to have certain examples. And with all MBR articles, we want the findings to be presented in a manner that will engage the reader. It should be lively and engaging. Don't use academic writing styles. The template instructions are the same as those for the other templates. Use the styles we've provided. Once you're ready to submit, you can delete the instructions page. And of course, there's the all-important reviewer appendix at the end of the template. This is where you're going to convince the reviewer that the process you used to create this research was rigorous, but the reviewer appendix will not be included with the article, so you can be more pedantic in your style if you feel you must be. But the key thing is you're trying to sell this to a reviewer and convince them that this is research that's worthy of publication. The relevant theory cover page is pretty much the same as all the other MBR cover pages. It has a tagline which is going to be used on the cover of the journal when it's printed to describe the article. It's going to be used on the website for the journal. And if we send it out on social media such as Twitter or Facebook, it is going to be included in the description of the article. So you want to spend some time on it. It's sort of like a Twitter feed. It's got to be short, but it's got to capture why a reader would be interested in this article, why they'd want to click on the website and see the article itself. The keywords are provided to index the article, make it easier for other researchers to find, but it won't appear in the article. What will appear in the article is the executive summary, and the executive summary should summarize why the research is of interest, why we care about this theory, and it should do it in a way that is going to convince someone to invest the time to actually read the article. In the body of the relevant theory article, you're going to have an introduction which should explain where the business problem that this theory relates to, came from, how you came about it. Maybe just give a very quick history of the theory being described, but we want to keep this well under half a page if we can. Then we briefly review the research associated with the theory. And this is not a literature review. We want to keep this down to a page, or maybe a little bit more if it's a very interesting summary. If you actually have a large body of literature that you want to review, then you use the research summary for practice manuscript, and you can refer to that in this article. Get two articles for the price of one. But the key thing here in the research theory article is that you want to, or the relevant theory article is that you want to motivate the reader, convince the reader that the theory has enough history to be worth thinking about. Obviously, the core of this particular article type will be the theory itself, where you describe the theory, and obviously this is written in terms for a practicing manager and not for an academic, and the applications of the theory, because a lot of times these theories seem extremely abstract, and what you want to do is you want to make it concrete enough so that the reader can consider how it might be applied in his or her situation. You can then have some discussion. This might identify situations where the theory seems most appropriate, where it seems least appropriate, and so forth. Maybe create some boundaries. You might raise some criticisms or support it has from the literature here. And then you'd have some conclusions, which are the key takeaways you want to get from this article. The references, as in all MBR publications, should use APA format. Because the relevant theory article is typically an attempt to explain a theory rather than develop new theories or make arguments for or against a theory, we probably are going to have a somewhat smaller reviewer appendix than for some of the other MBR submissions. We want to start by talking about how you ended up selecting this theory, why you think it's interesting, why you don't think practice is already aware of it. Then you can talk a little bit about the protocol through which you research the theory. Here, once again, in some cases, it might even be a single article that you're profiling. So this may not be that large a protocol. You can then talk about the process through which the discussions and conclusions were developed, just as it says here. That's fairly standard, and of course you want to make sure you have permission to use anything such as images that are incorporated in the body of the paper.